Hi there, I'm Dr. Jennifer Jackson. I'm a registered nurse and assistant professor in the Faculty of Nursing at the University of Calgary. And this video is talking about the differences between writing a paper, like a paper for your classes, and writing a journal article. So while there's lots of skills that overlap between the two, there are some important differences. So when you are writing a paper for your class, there's generally a specific aim that varies from case to case. So you might be asked to write about a clinical scenario and apply different concepts, such as reflect on a patient you worked with clinically and how their situation relates to the social determinants of health. You might have another assignment where you need to look at Patricia Benner's novice to expert theory and talk about the implications of that theory for orientation for new nurses. You might have a reflective paper, you might have lots of different kinds of things, but there's this kind of specific ask. And then what is being asked of you is to demonstrate the breadth and depth of your knowledge of the area and the different subjects that are related, and then also provide critical analysis of those topics or those discussions, and critical analysis of the way that they are addressed. So this happens at different levels, depending on if you're in undergrad or grad school or what type of program, but generally a paper is based around a specific aim that varies from case to case. And it's about you demonstrating a lot of understanding of the topic and offering critical analysis. A journal article always has the same purpose. Now, with everything, there's a caveat. I'm talking primarily about journal articles that would be in nursing or life sciences, health sciences. It would be somewhat different if it was history. It would also be somewhat different if it was computer science. But in general, the purpose of an empirical article and a reporting of either an experiment or a study of some kind, your purpose there is to tell how you did your research and what it adds to the literature. So it doesn't matter what study it is or for what journal, the purpose is always the same. You also can move forward knowing that the people who read these are primarily experts in the field. So you don't tend to have just casual observers coming across your paper. So you are not expected to demonstrate that you understand everything about the field. What you need to do is provide enough specific information to set the reader up so they understand your research and they are able to interpret your research based on the opening context that you give them. Also, within a paper for a class, it's generally pretty consistent style across the paper, whereas for an article, each section has a very distinct and different purpose. So the introduction and background aim to tell you what do you need to know to understand why we did this study? What gap in the literature are we trying to address? Or what story are we trying to tell that's currently not being heard? Then the methods section offers like a technical manual with a high degree of precision and detail about what you actually did. And then the results or findings section is what you found through that experiment or through that research study. In the discussion section, you then unpack those findings and compare them to other literature in the area to demonstrate how your work adds to or replicates existing work. So there's times where, like in the reference section, there should be, or sorry, in the results section, there should be no references. In the methods section, there should only be methodological references. If you need to introduce definitions, they should come in the introduction and background. So there's very strict structure as to what kind of thing you put where. So whereas in a paper for a class, you generally have introductory sentence, 3 or 4 citations to discuss a concept, and then your analysis at the end. And that same type of paragraph repeats over and over through your paper. So both of these different types of writing serve important purposes in academia. It's ways that we develop skills, communicate information, and also apply big ideas to a very specific context. The important thing is to recognize which kind of writing you need in which context. Because when you're writing a journal article, it needs to be different than when you're writing a paper. So it can help for class, you're probably reading tons and tons of papers to better understand areas of interest. So I would suggest if you're also doing journal article writing, it's a good idea to, at the end of reading a paper for its subject matter, take a second and also just look at the sections. So like introduction, background, aims, and or question, hypotheses, methods, results, discussion. It's always the same, but that structure enables us to communicate scientific information clearly and effectively. So take a look at it and see how they've set it up. And then from there, kind of file that knowledge away. So even if you're using it to inform a class paper, you want to just look at the style of how authors write those journal articles. There's pretty strict guidelines now, especially in life sciences, anything within the Equator Network, that you have to write a journal article this way. There's a very specific structure that's expected, and you don't generally deviate from that. That doesn't mean you can't be creative or bring your own voice to it or write it in a decolonized way or a feminist way or something like that. But you do need to do that in a style that is still within the expectations of your audience so that they're not distracted by the formatting. You want them focused on your ideas, not trying to follow how you've written things. So within different different journals and different publishers, there's different degrees of flexibility. So there's certainly an element of case-by-case basis for this. But in general, whenever you're approaching your writing, have a sense of what skills you are being asked to demonstrate or what information you need to share, and tailor your approach to that kind of writing, because between these, there's almost no crossover. So there are some commonalities in terms of how you write a discussion versus how you write a paper, but not much. So make sure you're going the right direction on the highway when you get started, because the different techniques and conventions of each one will define how you outline and proceed with sharing your information.